the difference and what you have just said?
Of course, part of the issue, which of course is also is beyond the mandate of the Commission, is basically the general economic, socio-economic conditions arising in the country, whereby these the issues of unemployment, the issues of jobs and everything. This one whereby people are not seeing the democratic organs or institutions which have been put in place, they are not delivering. During the campaign period, they have been promised delivery of this, we'll do this, we'll deliver this, and that issue is not happening. That one leads to political, voter apathy, because people know that my vote is not going to change anything. The other issue which leads to voter apathy is mismanagement of the electoral system. Mismanagement of the electoral system is a perception that the referee is not fair, that the game is rigged. So that perception, be it the truth or not, whether it has substance or not, is one of the key undermining factor of an electoral system, that you really know that even if I count, even if I vote, the person who will decide the vote is the person who counts the vote. As long as you're able to ensure the voters that this vote is going to count, this vote is not going to be rigged, the process is going to be free and fair, and the elections, whatever you're going to cast is what you're going to get out. And this one can only be achieved through a transparent process, and the legal safeguards are there. Lastly, is also the conduct of the political parties. It's a question of how, that is what I refer to the general conduct of the electoral system, ecosystem. How are the parties conducting their nomination? How have these candidates been arrived at? How have the nominations, how are they conducted? So that one also leads to voter apathy, because the issues of voter suppression through violence and this, through violence or whatever means, will also lead to voter apathy, because in the electoral nomination system, if the same nomination systems as nominations processes are marred with irregularities, then this particular person who participated or did not participate in the nomination process, then they'll not find value to go and cast the vote. And that's why the architect of our laws placed the mandate to police the nomination process on the Iebc, because they knew that the two of them are interlinked. Because if you are going to have a nomination process which is not regulated, then the game, the final outcome of the game will not be free and fair. So the general architect of our electoral system includes the issues of policing the nomination system. So that is one of the reasons it was there. But of course, there are challenges in terms of enforcement. And that's why, if I become the chairman of Iebc, knowledgeable about the issues of that the nomination is a problem, I will implement measures to deal with the issues of nomination. How do you deal with the issues of nomination? I've been City Hall for a period of 8 years. I've witnessed nomination. I know the games which are played, voter suppression, and so on. So that is one of the issues which leads to voter apathy.
Thank you very much. Last election, it was said that a huge number of registered voters did not turn out to vote, and perhaps for the reasons that you are giving. Should you be successful in your quest to become the chair of the Iebc, please specify to this panel what measures you will take to mitigate voter apathy, especially now that we have a huge population of potential voters who have attained the age of voting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melanie Senior. Of course, as I've already previously stated, part of the reason why you have voter apathy, even if you prescribe the medicine, you're not going to get a cure until you deal with the trust deficit. So as granted an opportunity to be the chairperson of the Iebc, the first and most important duty I'll do is to lead the commission to regain its trust in the electoral system. And that one I'll undertake through a national dialogue with every stakeholders. The bulk of the voter apathy is with the youth. So we'll have to institute a national dialogue discussion or a conversation. Why are you indifferent? Why are you not participating in elections? It's very important to be honest. You meet the different group of individuals through a stakeholder engagement. You have a meeting with the youth. I can label the National Dialogue Conference as the IEBC we want. So that as an IBC is able to get feedback on, so that they can deal with this particular issue about the electors, how the referee has been the reason or the cause of voter apathy. The other issue I'll address is the issue of voter registration. Of course, if you look at the data, maybe it's just because here we don't go deeper like the way the Americans do, whereby they do post-poll opinion polls and they're able to dictate or discern patterns in voting patterns, you will find out that part of the reason we have low voter turnout is a question of voter registration. That I registered at the time I'd gone for Easter holiday in Mwingi, but the elections are held in August and I'm in Nairobi, I'm not available to go. So that way, we really need to relook at our voter registration system and processes. And for that reason, if I'm granted the opportunity to be the chairman of IDC, I'm going to digitalize the voter registration system so that it's not manual. You don't need to go to a polling station to register as a voter. Or you don't need to go and verify your voting or inspect the register at the polling station. Why doesn't the IEBC have an application, a digital platform, whereby, like what we do have in lawyers, we have the e-filing system, there's another SASA system, we have the KRA system, a digital platform relating to voter register, so that, which is interactive enough that a voter can basically register immediately, and if a voter wishes to shift or to move their vote, they don't have to wait until the registers, the period for relocating or transferring your election details to come about. So that is one of the reasons, one of the areas we need to address.
Thank you very much. Wouldn't that require legislation?
Yes.
Just brief.
Yeah. Yes, it requires an amendment of the Elections Act. The election. Do I proceed?
Thank you very much. That's what I was looking for. Unless you have something to add.
No. If you're contented, I'm okay with it.
I am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We will now ask FCPA Tanui to also ask you some questions.
Yes.
Yes. During your introduction, my colleague here, Vice Chair, asked you about skills. And one of the skills that you mentioned is that you have public finance management skills. Is that correct?
Yes, CPA, Tanui.
Yes, and you also said that you've been an accounting officer for the County Assembly of Nairobi. You were accounting officer for how many years?
I was accounting officer for the duration of time I was a clerk. That is a period of 8 years.
So when did you leave County Assembly of Nairobi?
I left the County Assembly, ceased to be the clerk in the year 2022.
Which month?
That was around March.
March.
Yeah, there was in between, there were issues with the court cases and everything, and after the determination, that is when I ceased to be the accounting officer.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the responsibilities of any accounting officer under the PFM Act is to ensure that public resources are lawfully used, they are authorized, they are used in an economical, efficient, effective way, and in a transparent manner. When you mentioned that you are the accounting officer, I actually looked at the Auditor General's report for the County Assembly of Nairobi for the year 2022. And there were a lot of issues that were raised, issues on the financial statements. First of all, it was an adverse opinion, and I believe as an accounting officer, you know what an adverse opinion says with regard to your financial reports. You are aware what an adverse opinion means?
Yes, I'm aware of adverse opinion.
You are aware of that. Huh? So it was an adverse opinion for the financial statements. And they raised over 20 issues, touching on unsupported, unauthorized compensation to employees, payment of allowances to staff above their job grade, And of interest to me, since you are a lawyer and you are the accounting officer, is that you overshot your legal fees budget by over 7.7 million. And in terms of your report on lawfulness, effectiveness of public resources, there were 3 issues with regard to report on internal controls. So there were a lot of issues that were raised, actually a total of 26 audit queries that were raised by the Auditor General. So if appointed the chair, and you've told us you have these public finance management skills. And as I said, I think earlier today, that Iebc is one of the biggest beneficiaries of public resources. In fact, if you followed in the media recently, they were seeking for over 61 billion to conduct the 2027 general elections. So how will these public finance management skills that you've told us you have, given the finding of the Auditor General in the County Assembly with regard to use of public resources and the big picture that we have for this country as chair of IPC?
Thank you very much, CPA Tanui. As I mentioned to you, that there were court issues. From the period between 2019 to 2022, I was not the functional clerk. There were court orders which had decided that I step aside from the official discharge of the duties. They were made by the employment court, and therefore, even if on record was still the clerk and everything, if you look at those accounts audited report, you will see the person who has signed the financial statement. If you can peruse, you'll realize that I'm not the one who signed the financial statement. You know very well that it's accounting officer who is supposed to sign the financial statement. So those are not accounting statements of the period in which I was functionally the accounting officer. That is from period of 2019 to 2022, there were acting clerks. There were a series of acting clerks. The court had already ruled due to the issues which were in the assembly, then I step aside. But the period between 2013 to 2019 had clean auditor reports, had clean opinion from the Auditor General. You can look at them. They're available in the public domain. These issues arose during that period of time with the officers who took up the institution. So in terms of running a clean, an efficient institution in terms of financial management, my period from 2013 to 2019, those reports of the Auditor General are very clear that we were very effective in the use of public finance. I understand that the IBC, as you have already put, the IBC is one of the biggest, it has a huge budget, and those expenditure patterns are during the period of time, during the elections period. Therefore, the IBC Commission, pursuant to its constitutional mandate to provide, to formulate policies and formulate strategies, even though it is not the commission which is the accounting officer. The commissioners are not the accounting officer. The accounting officer is the secretary to the commission. But using the policy formulation and the strategies of mandate and oversight mandate, I'll be in a position to assist the commission to achieve its financial obligations without raising any queries with the Auditor General. And I'm aware that issues have been raised with the Auditor General, but I can be of assistance so that the commission can get clean reports like the ones which I got when I was an accounting officer.
Why I raise that question is that you told us actually you were the clerk until 2022. You didn't tell us from 2019 to 2022 you are not in office. That is when you did your introduction. So it's on that basis that I was picking up that issue.
But anyway,
yes.
Let me just raise something in relation to what he has said.
Yeah.
In the year when he was the accounting officer, year ended 2018, June 30th, there was 211 million shillings paid outside IFMIS from the auditor's report. 211, 351, 680 were made outside IFMIS during the financial year 2017-2018 as tabulated below by the County Assembly.
Yes.
Yeah, so there are audit queries on your accounts for the year that you are the accounting officer, even though you have mentioned that there was none.
The issues I'm saying is that that report, I don't think whether it gave an adverse opinion. What we need to understand is that from the period of 2013 to maybe recently, the assemblies were not, the IFMIS was not, all of us were not on IFMIS, the IFMIS has not been rolled out to all the entire county governments. It's only recently that we have had a complete rollout of IFMIS. So invariably, because of the challenges of IFMIS, the system like in Nairobi, that issue of IFMIS, paying out of IFMIS, was an issue which was cleared by the committee when it was established that the assembly had not been integrated. The IFMIS system had not been brought to the assembly, so it proposed that payments had to be paid out of IFMIS, but there was no loss of public funds.
Okay.
The report does not say that there was loss of public funds. It's just a question of that payments were not paid on IFMIS, but there was no loss of public funds because these were just processes, because if IFMIS took a while for it to be completely rolled out in the counties.
Fair enough. The 3.2 bank reconciliations, the assembly did not prepare bank reconciliations for 5 bank accounts disclosed, and then he details the amounts there. So there's quite a bit from the reports that you have alluded to have been clean. I think there's quite a lot. It's just that time does not allow us. But can you please proceed?
Thank you, Chair, for those clarifications. Let's move on. One of the areas that have come out, and I think you did mention that there are several bills and regulations that are yet to be enacted or promulgated that touch on IEBC. One of them is the IEBC fund. What would you, as a chair of IEBC, what would you do to operationalize that fund? It is there in law. And as you give us a way forward, how different will that fund be, or how helpful will it be to the operations of IEBC, given the current funding arrangement that is done through the Exchequer? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. The issue of IEBC fund is not unique to the IEBC only, the issue of funds. It's also an issue at the judiciary with respect to the judiciary fund. It's also an issue at the parliamentary service regarding to the parliamentary fund. Even where I was in the county assembly, our laws which governs operations establish the county assembly service fund. But the law can establish fund, but the fund has to be funded. So that's where the problem is. The fund is basically like a basket, it's like an account. It doesn't generate its own money. It is a repository where extra resources can be kept so that they can be plugged back in after years. If you're not using these resources, you can. So the idea of a fund in terms of when you establish this institution, it means if at the end of your financial year you had been given a budget of 16 billion and you're not able to extinguish the entire budget and you have left with maybe a surplus of around 5 million, you can deposit that fund, that amount of money into the fund so that it can be carried over. Unlike the financial system whereby at the end of every financial year, the PFM requires those budgetary resources to revert back to the treasury. So when you have a fund, the funds are supposed to be deposited there. The other use of the fund is when we're getting special funds for particular purposes, special purposes. Like maybe you had requisition funds for voter delimitation exercise, and the treasury had already allocated resources of around 5 billion for that particular exercise, and for one reason or another that exercise is not able to be executed. Instead of returning those resources back to the national treasury, the resources can be deposited there. Of course, the other one is also extra funding. So this fund has always been a big debate with the national treasury due to limited resources. They argue that there's a lot of demand from the entire Exchequer, has got a lot of claim. So there's no, that is the argument, it's not my argument, that it will not be useful when we actually borrowing money from the banks to pay your recurrent expenditures, then we give you the money and you keep it in a fund. But the reason why the IBC fund was supposed to be kept is that these resources can remain with IBC even if they're not utilized, all of them. It's a question of engagement with the National Treasury so that they can understand. And for that reason, it's very incumbent upon the IBC commissioners who understand this public finance arrangement to negotiate. That's why I'm offering myself based on my political skills. It's a question of negotiation with the National Treasury. When I was the clerk of the County Assembly of Nairobi, the requirement was that we'll get money from the National Treasury real time. Yet parliaments don't get money real time. Parliaments operate within immediate needs. There's a need for money today, then you need to pay for that services. But the controller of budget had come up with guidelines whereby you can only first of all requisition the funds, and once you requisition the funds, that's when you're going to be paid. But the funds may be to pay for an emergency, maybe a trip or a retreat or something. So what I did, using my political management skill and experience, had a meeting with Madam Agnes Odhiambo. And we agreed, explained to her, look, the assemblies are different. We really need to have money in our bank account to fund our operations. And the agreement we agreed on, that she will allow us to get 20 million in advance. We utilize that 20 million, and then we account later, then we get the next refill. And for that purpose, we are able to have a sustainable flow of activities without interruption. And that is a negotiation. So IBC requires that skill, that you can be able to go to offices and negotiate. You can go and explain your position to the National Treasury, because having interacted with the National Treasury, myself as an accounting officer, it's all about negotiation. It's all about explaining your position and understanding. Then this fund can be activated, it can get money. Those activities, when we have not utilized our resources, we can still retain the resources so that we don't even end up with issues of something like pending bills. One of the greatest causes of pending bills is that the financial year comes to an end, you already have a contract which is ongoing, and by the time the new financial year has hit in, then the resources have already been transferred back to the National Treasury, and you are supposed to rebudget again. But when you have a fund, if IBC was in the process of procuring some goods and services, it's able to store those resources in the fund because they had already been budgeted and paid back at the end, at the advent of the new financial year. You will be in a position now to go back to the fund and pick up those resources. It's a question of having a pocket. I'm not able to buy today, I've put the money in this pocket. Tomorrow I'll be able to pay when you deliver the goods. That is basically the idea surrounding the IBC fund.
Thank you. And lastly, now given your area of expertise as an accounting officer, you've appointed the chair of IBC. What accountability mechanism or structures will you put in place to ensure that the resources that have been given to IBC, aware that you are not the accounting officer, but you are responsible for the commission. You are the head of that election management body. So what structures as the chair and chair of commissioners will you put in place for accountability and transparency in the use of public resources?
Of course, the utilization, the expenditures I've already agreed is that it's a work of the accounting officer, but it is the IBC, the commission, to exercise oversight and provide the strategic directions and the policies for utilization of the resources. So I'll implement two mechanisms. First is a question of procurement planning, financial planning and procurement planning. One of the areas whereby you have challenges in terms of effective utilization of the resources is lack of proper procurement planning. Of course, it is a work of for the accounting officer to procure goods and services, but it is a work of the commission to approve the procurement plan. So at that level, using the relevant committee of the commission, that is the finance, I know the IBC has got a finance and a supply chain committee, that committee can engage the secretariat periodically so that they can have quarterly. What we used to have in the county assembly when I was the clerk of the assembly, every financial year before the beginning of the financial year, almost 3 months, anticipating the budget that we're going to have, we will come up with the procurement plans for the other financial year. Then we'll have it approved by the board. We'll have a discussion with the board. So every quarterly, we will present our progress reports to the subcommittee, the relevant subcommittee of the board, so that we can have a conversation and engagement, so that discussion is there. So in terms of yes,
That's one.
Yes.
The second one, so that we save on time.
One
Say
of-
two strategies. One is the procurement plan. The other one is
The other one is establishment of this committee so that they have clear mandates. If you look at the Iebc, the commission committees do not have an establishment. They are not clear in terms of their mandate, and that is one of the recommendation which was made in the Kregler's report. If you look at the Kregler's report, he actually pointed out that these committees of Iebc, they have got no foundation in legislation. So we really need to enhance the functionality of the committees by stipulating their mandate in legislation through law reform. That is what I'll also, so that these committees can be robust, so that there's no pull back and forth between the Secretariat and the Commission that you interfere in our line of control, yet the committees have got clear mandate in terms of that effective oversight of the resources.
wish you well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, SCP Tanui. This time, I want to ask Evans Misati to ask you some questions.
Thanks so much, Chair. Mr. Mfenge, now I want to ask you a question related to the level of preparedness that we need to have as a country before the 2027 general election. If you are given an opportunity and you are the chair, assume you are the chair of IPC today, or rather when you are given that opportunity, what would be your priority areas in preparation for the 2027 general election? Just to mention a few.
Thank you very much, Member Misati, Mr. Misati. We are all aware that by the time this process of constituting the commission is in place, we'll only have hardly 2 years to the election. And if you look at the what we refer to as the electoral cycle, we are now in the second electoral cycle, which is pre-election cycle, which comprises of activities where this is when there's trainings, planning, information, and voter registration exercise. So the commission, when it takes office, and if I'm lucky and privileged to be appointed as a commissioner, the first priority area of engagement will be law reforms. You cannot conduct, they recommend law reform. Law reform means we really need to work on our laws. That is the IBC, as I mentioned, currently has got 4 pieces of legislations which are critical for smooth functions of the election. The other, IBC also has got almost around 8 regulations which also requires to be taken to Parliament and approved by Parliament before they are gazetted. So that will be my immediate priority, to use my legislative expertise and my political management experience to assist the commission to navigate and to ensure these regulations are in place before the elections are run. Because we have a culture, and the Supreme Court has actually, and other courts have said, there's a culture that these elections laws are passed 3 months or 6 months or to the elections. So if I become the chairperson of IBC, I'll ensure that the elections laws are passed. I'll assist the commission to ensure that the election laws are passed early. The other issue I'll deal with is the issue of voter registration. We really need to deal with that issue of voter registration. We'll have to look at the direction in which the issue of boundary delimitation.
That is sorted. If you can kindly mention them.
Oh, I mentioned them.
So
Don't want
no
explanation.
explanations.
So, okay, if it's a question of mentioning, I deal with the issue of electoral planning and operations, sorting out the issues of the logistics of IBC. I'll have to organize a logistical program which runs from 2 years to the election time, so that some activities of the elections which are non-essential can be brought forward and can be handled within the pre-election period. And basically, that is my answer.
Thanks so much. Now, it's in public domain that in the past, the political influence or attempt to influence the IPC through a commissioner is a risk So what do you think you can do as a chair if you are faced with such an influence, and how will you mitigate that as a commission? You know what happened in Pomas? The boardroom rapture, such like issues. So how do you think you'll be able to face that or mitigate that as if you are a chair of the IPC?
Thank you very much, Mr. Misati. Of course, it's very important that if I become the chairperson of the commission, to make my members understand. Of course, the law provides that before you assume a state office, you must swear an oath of office. That is the most important thing. Then you must also subscribe to a code of conduct. So it's very important at the outset for the members of the commission to understand the code of conduct and the extent, especially Article 74 and 75 of the Constitution. So
Are you saying the ones who did that had not sworn the code of conduct, or not sworn to? They are done the same. So what is it that you can do different, please, so that we are able to move? The people who did that, the influence that happened, the same commissioners had been sworn. They had sworn, they had taken oath. So what different can you do?
What I can do, of course, I was building up on the issue of sensitization. There's a question of understanding the code of conduct. Number two, I'll also use the system of ADR. My political skills, I've been in the parliament, I've been in committees of parliament, I've been in committees of the county assembly, and the issues of conflict of interest, issues of member behaving badly, or members crossing the line, or issues of integrity, sometimes they'll arise. The skill which you have learned in those institutions, first of all, is to deal with the members. What we say, can you empty the secretariat out so that we have a one-on-one meeting? Because if I say that the minute we are aware of that, we institute Article 251 process of removal, I don't think that will be the first. The first step will, first of all, to deal with the ADR. You must have a bare knuckle meeting. I've been in committees of parliament whereby members have had bare knuckle discussions. Where you must change. That is the first strategy. Number two, if a member does not change, if the conduct of that particular member borders criminality, if the conduct of that member infringes on the Electoral Offences Act, then we'll institute a relevant complaint as a commission to the relevant agencies to take charge. Thirdly, if that conduct, again, we in our own discussion, that is an issue which it has to be agreed as a commission, then we can sign a petition to institute or to start Article 251 process for removal of a member. But my political skills, my political experience skills means that, first of all, you must have coherence. You must have cohesion, and you must have communication channels in the commission, so that when these issues are rising, you yourself, you can first of all handle them. If you're not able to handle them, then the law will take its course.
Thanks so much. You have tried to answer the question. Now, lastly, you are aware that the political parties, as the key stakeholders, how will you manage the political parties in a scenario where you find that political parties have diverse interests, and a situation where they put pressure on you? Which mechanism can you use to ensure that there is dialogue to engage the political parties, so that when you have your plans as IPC, election management plans, the regulations that you're talking about, you mentioned about regulations and wanting to make sure that they are passed. You cannot be able to pass them without involving the key stakeholders, who are actually the users. It's like a football game. You have to tell the players the rules of the game. So what will you do to ensure that you have a smooth learning relations with the political parties?
The first point is we should, as a commission, develop a stakeholder plan specifically tailor-made to deal with this one particular stakeholder. We have the broader stakeholder plan, but we must have a stakeholder strategy
linganisa. Hii mtu meusia watu wengi sana, akiusa yeye natoroka.
Na hata ukiangalia hii kwanza amebit